Hello Internet, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this is Who Cares, where we're going to discuss and debate the Doctor on his adventures through space and time.
So get ready for a Christmas special that has enough action to sate a young Bruce Willis.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
So hello everyone, welcome back to Who Cares. It's been a while, because obviously the regular season ended.
Yeah, but we have the Christmas special, because Christmas happened.
Woo! And it's a good Christmas special, which is good. The Doctor Who Christmas
Sometimes
specials,
they're kind of weak.
They're hit or miss, but I think this one, for the most part, was a hit.
I'd say 99% of it was excellent, and the last 1% is only an opinion.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that, and Jake and I might have differing opinions on
bit.
that. So without further ado, spoiler alert, here we go with Stephen Moffat's Last Christmas. It begins with, if you know, the BBC does a thing where it's comedy relief, children in need type situation, where they'll show clips of things and raise money for sick children or something. It's a BBC thing, so I'm not fully aware.
Yeah.
But there was a clip from that, and it's literally the opening scene of this episode with Clara on a roof, and she runs into Santa Claus. Interestingly, this is disjointed from the rest of the episode, which makes...
For the most part.
This is a weakness in Moffat's writing. I think Moffat comes up with neat concepts and then doesn't quite know how to weave them into a totally coherent story.
Which is weird, because this is the guy that brought you the crack-in-the-wall Amy Pond story, which wove really nicely, but I think that was his one.
But I think he kind of messed that up by bringing it back in Matt Smith's finale, too.
Like,
he's
so
like,
too.
wait up, guys,
Yeah,
let me add something. Like,
remember
it's not
that? Look at that, it's there in the very last shot.
But basically, this scene has very little to do with the rest. I think Stephen Moffat just, wanted to put something for, the comedy relief. Children in need, which is reasonable, but, I mean, you could have shot something else.
Sure.
But budget, I get it. And B, because he thought it'd be a neat scene, Santa crashed on a roof.
All things considered, excellent scene. It sets up the character of Santa Claus that's throughout this special, and he's great. Played by Nick Frost, who is the guy who's not Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, and he does... Truly, he does an excellent job.
Yeah, he does a really great job.
It's not like necessarily a traditional Santa. No. He's snarky. He's written like a Stephen Moffat character, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
And then the two elves that are with him are incredible. I think that just works. I would watch that show.
So Clara and the Doctor end up at this Arctic base in the North Pole, and you don't really know what's going on there, but there's this room that they're trying to get into for inexplicable reasons. And there's a dance scene that's either cringy or funny, depending on how much you're willing to just have fun with a Christmas special.
I think
it's
it's clearly supposed to be a little cringy, because the character itself, she is kind of like a weird, like kind of oddball, and she says weird stuff, and she's kind of a fun quirk.
She's a fun character. I like her. What I liked about this episode, I think this is a good time to bring it up. This felt a lot like a Russell T Davies episode for me, in regard to the fact that they're at a base,
like a
somewhere,
location, and
they stay there for the whole time, and they have a very strongly written and acted supporting cast.
And the alien is interesting.
Yeah, this is interesting too, because the aliens, which were later referred to as dream crabs, which bear a striking resemblance to facehuggers from Alien. Which,
they make a joke in it.
Yeah, which I'm glad they did.
Is...
Stephen Moffat's writing, when he writes a way to explain why it's derivative, is funny.
Yeah.
A lot of it is derivative, but when he finds a way to write it in that it's derivative, it makes sense. But the Doctor and Clara show up to this base just as they're in this room where you can't think about the monster.
Yeah.
And she says a funny line, the Doctor, Clara, and the rest of the base people come in, and all of a sudden they're attacked. But then, explosion, Santa shows up and saves them.
Yeah.
The Dream Crab's another thing I like about them. It seems like it's been a long time since we've gotten a Doctor Who monster that isn't malicious. It's just an animal trying to feed. I mean, they seem monstrous, but at the end of the day, they're not like being like, we're gonna take over humans. They're just trying to feed. That's their natural process. Seems like Moffat really likes the people who want to take over the world or want to exterminate humans or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's because he's stuck on the Dalek Cyberman train a lot.
Yeah, a lot, yeah. I guess that makes sense.
But yeah, these were very neat.
So we get some cool stuff with Santa, as you would imagine. Nick Frost does a great job. Him and the Doctor's interactions are all excellent. I would kind of compare them to him and Robin Hood. It has that kind of chemistry.
Which is the only thing I took away from the Robin Hood episode was how good those two were together, especially when they're chained up. Great scenes. But the thing about this, the Nick Frost Santa Claus is just how tit for tat he can go with everyone in the room simultaneously, and how he's just so clearly above, like, yes, I can take care of this. I'm Santa Claus.
Which makes a whole lot of sense with the reveal later in the episode. Spoilers that Santa is sort of a figment of everyone's collective imagination. So it's going to have certain qualities of the Doctor because, it's part him.
So the way that works is when a dream crab latches onto your face, it puts you into a dream state as sort of an anesthetic so that it can feed on the insides of your brain. And it makes sense. I think that's kind of a neat thing. It's kind of a naturalistic, makes you hallucinate kind of thing. But it's a shared dream. They don't really explain that so much. They just kind of say it, which is fine, because if they over-explain it, you lose that kind of disbelief.
If you've seen Inception, you get the gist.
Yeah, pretty much a dream inside a dream inside a dream thing.
One of the big deals in the episode is we have Clara, who goes into a dream state, and we get a appearance by Danny Pink again.
Yeah.
It's a dream Danny Pink, though, but still, I think that's a strong scene, and it's a good way to close out the arc of her and Danny. Because I think in the end of Death in Heaven, it was closed, but it wasn't that great. This was a really good resolution for her grief and everything.
I think it was really, really good, especially because it's a dream Danny. It's her taking care of her own problem through Danny, and he has this really great line where he's like, okay, you've basically had enough grief, you're only allowed to miss me for 5 minutes a day, and he makes a joke like, but you really, really gotta miss me, I mean total despair, I want you to own it, and then after that you gotta go and live. And that's such a good, line, especially because, again, she's helping herself,
right?
And kind of going through what Danny would do, and I thought that was a really great line, and if I had a soul, maybe I would have cried.
Maybe. But when the Doctor does finally get her out of that dream, they of course determine, we're still dreaming. They wake up again. Santa Claus, who is the figment of their own imaginations, helps them. And it's a nice, parallel to childhood wonder, the power of the human spirit / imagination. Very good. They wake up again, and then eventually they even realize they're still dreaming yet again. Yeah. Stephen Moffat was like, Inception, what if I did that but 5 more times?
and part of, at least they didn't milk the continuing dream states. They're like, oh shit, we're in another dream, let's do it again.
Yeah, they didn't dwell too much.
Yeah, which they could have, and it could have been bad.
Yeah.
But the pacing was such that you can forgive these multiple instances of it just because you get more Doctor.
Yeah, I'm glad this episode was an hour long too instead of 45 minutes. I'm glad they gave the extra 15 minutes. I think if they tried to crunch this down, we would have lost some good stuff.
Absolutely.
So I like when they do that. I mean, we got, I think, 1 or 2 fewer episodes this season, but we got a couple extra length ones, and I think it really paid off. If they continue this, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, especially because some of the episodes were a little weak, especially early on.
Yeah. If you think, the thing about this season, this episode's kind of a closure to the whole season. It feels very much like it's part of Series 8.
Which I enjoy, because I don't necessarily like when the Christmas specials are standalone, because it's superfluous. Yeah. But this one actually has plot that it's filling in. As
much as people give Stephen Moffat shit, there were 3 episodes this season that him or the guy who did Mummy on the Orient Express, I apologize, I forget his name. There were 3 episodes that guy and Stephen Moffat had no writing credits on, and that was Robot of Sherwood, Kill the Moon, and Force of the Night, which are the 3 worst episodes.
Yeah.
And Stephen Moffat had nothing to do with them.
I don't think
I wouldn't give him no blame, because he certainly has final say.
Okay, it, yeah.
But everything he had his hands on writing wise, how do I put this? Were either the strongest, Listen,
great episode,
or they at least weren't the worst. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think hopefully either they scrutinize those people more or just don't let them write anymore on the show.
The guy who wrote Mummy on the Orient Express, and I think he wrote Flatline as well. Again, I'm forgetting his name. I apologize. He's doing, I think that was his first time writing too. I hope they bring him back next year, because both those episodes were well written and felt like Doctor Who episodes.
Right, but the other one, Kill the Moon, was just one of those ugh.
And I don't think there was a single episode this year that I didn't get some sort of value from.
Yeah, there were certainly moments, but obviously, no one thought the plot of Sherwood was good. It was more just the bits inside of it. And
Jamie Matheson, his name is Jamie Matheson. I remember. I got for Christmas, I got the Doctor Who Blu-ray set for Series 8. The first episode I watched was not Kill the Moon, no. The first episode I watched was Mummy on the Orient Express. That's probably my favorite episode this season.
I'd say so. I'd say that's one of the stronger episodes in the last couple seasons, actually.
So, there's that. But at the end of the episode, you're going to want us to talk about something that's pivotal to next series,
right?
And that's the possible departure of Clara, which was a big deal because before this, if someone who's a big enough fan of Doctor Who to watch this show, they probably follow the news a little bit on the Facebook at least, or on Reddit or whatever. We didn't know if Jenna was going to be leaving this series, so I think Stephen Moffat played with those expectations, and in part kind of had to make last-minute decisions.
Yeah, and because of that, we have two viable endings in one ending, if that makes sense. And if you've seen it, you know what we're talking about. The very first ending, I thought, if you're going to send Clara off and Jenna Coleman's not going to be Clara anymore, it was a great way to do it.
Perfect. But then they take this and they make it so she didn't leave. If you haven't seen it, I don't know why you're watching this, but basically the Doctor goes to find her. Turns out she was from a different time zone because the dream crabs, you can be in different times and still have the same dream, whatever.
Right.
And then she was old, and it very much mirrored Matt Smith's leaving in the last Christmas special, which was brilliant. That's a great way to end her character.
Exactly.
The problem is, at the end, they revealed, nope, still a dream, haha, I'm Santa, and then she's going to be in next season, and she's going to continue as companion.
And I have a couple things about it. Like, if you're just going to end it where she was old, they had a really, really great scene about how they caught up even, and she talked about her life and how, like, you know, she didn't ever end up getting married, but there was, you know, a lot of suitors, and, you know, there was just no extra Danny, and she traveled, and she did all this stuff. She taught abroad, and she learned to fly, and it was just she had a good life. And then the Doctor is like, we should hang out every Christmas and, like, do the little cracker things, and, you know, and it was a good moment, and you thought maybe it'll end now, and then the Doctor will leave, and whatever, and you'll get, like, a preview. But instead of that, they do the dream thing, comes back, and they just go off. Now, I don't hate Clara as much as some people hate Clara.
I don't.
If and Hugo and I talked about this before recording, if they don't make her the focal point of the story.
That's my whole problem with her, is the last season she was the point around which the Doctor and the plot turned, and that bothers me. The Impossible Girl story I thought was pretty weak and had a fairly weak conclusion.
It started off really cool though,
but the
conclusion wasn't.
A problem with Moffat is his resolutions aren't as good as the setups. But it was okay. It was half a season. This season, though, it felt like... I hate to say this because people harp on this so much. I want to say first, I still love the show. Yeah. But the problem is, it's become kind of the Clara show, and the Doctor's there. Next season, it needs to shift the focus. Look at Jamie Matheson's episode... Mummy on the Orient Express. That's how you need to do it. The Doctor is the focal point. The scenes in which the plot progresses are the scenes in which the Doctor is at the forefront.
Exactly.
However, a lot of episodes this season, it seems like the plot progresses when Clara is at the forefront, and I think that's the issue. The show is about the Doctor, and certainly the companion is there, but it bugs me when every week they have to take an extra 5 minutes to show Clara at the school or at her house.
And they do the Clara theme.
And it's like, we get it. I look back to series 1 or 2 with Rose. Rose is just there. They're already on the TARDIS. The adventure can start.
You have very little at-home Rose stuff. Especially, I mean... Don't get me wrong, Rose totally infatuated with the Tennant's Doctor, and she wants to be there all the time, and she doesn't have a Danny Pink, even though poor Mickey. And then you have Amy and Rory, which is a love story that happens in the TARDIS and with the Doctor all the time. And then I kind of understand the thought process, like, if we're going to have another romance with Clara when it happens, it's got to be off the TARDIS, because it just would feel too Amy Rory. Right. And I totally get that. But you can't spend as much time as you did. And now that he's dead, I mean, I really hope they don't make a plot around her dealing with grief, because they closed that, so I hope they don't even visit it very much. I hope
they need to not give her another story arc. The show needs to be, okay, we know these characters now. Capaldi has had a series to establish his Doctor, so people know how to write for him. Right. Clara, we know her character very well now, because we've had a season and a half of character development. Let's just have them exploring the universe and having fun and adventures, and that needs to be the pivotal plot point. And you can have an overarching story, but it shouldn't be character-driven like the Danny-Clara thing.
Absolutely.
It should be maybe Missy comes back again and does something, or
I hope we're looking for Gallifrey.
Yeah, something that's happening in the background, which is fine, but it needs to be its own story. Don't keep going back to Coal Hill. Don't keep going back to modern London. Don't keep going to Cardiff, which I know is a Doctor Who thing. It's budgetary, at least in part. But
Cardiff, I'm more okay with, just because that's how it is. But as long as they don't go every episode, it's fine. I would like to see Captain Jack come back if John Barrowman's not busy, or something. They just need to have another companion. I think
agree.
It's time for a secondary companion.
I agree,
especially if they're more of the focus. And then you can kind of push Clara away, and she can kind of be like the assistant, who's also pretty much just as competent as the Doctor for the most part. She seems to have her shit together. She's the one solving a lot of issues this last series. So you've established that she can take care of herself, and you can have two people simultaneously doing stuff on opposite ends of, say, a base or something.
And you can have that be the dynamic.
Exactly.
Have this new person come in and see we have the Doctor and Clara, clearly a
Sherlock Watson
synergy. And they're kind of the outsider, and as the series progresses, they can become part of the group.
And I think that'd be very interesting. And especially if they start off as like kind of a weak character that can't go anywhere else but the TARDIS, and the Doctor kind of just is like, okay, come on.
Yeah.
I think that'd be interesting, and I don't know. I think you could write that, but God, I'm worried that he's falling in love with Jenna Coleman, I think.
Moffat?
Yeah. I think he's just like, Jenna, no, come to me.
The theory is that this episode was shot with two different endings. The first ending being just the old woman Clara, and then there'd be sort of more of a closure of him going to the TARDIS on his own. And the second ending, which is what we got, which is them leaving together as her being young, because Jenna Coleman didn't decide until very late into production what they were going to do.
And that might be it.
I don't know. I'm hopeful for next season, because I like to think, if you look at, let's say, Tennant and Smith, Tennant's second series, which is the third series overall, one of his strongest series,
easily,
and much better than his first. I didn't hate like series 2 with him and Rose, but it wasn't as strong as him and Martha, and especially him and Donna. Him and Donna is my favorite series with him, or the specials.
That's because she's awesome, though.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying I think the writers got very comfortable with those kind of stories.
And that's a really good example of showing home life for the companion in a reasonable amount.
Yeah.
She only had like one real episode where she was at home like a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And then the other times, like, it'd be quick glimpses, and she'd bitch about her mom for a second, and then she'd go with the Doctor, and it'd be fine. And you establish the grandpa, which is important later if if you watch Tenet.
And I mean,
it was easy.
I know people are going to comment and say, "What are you talking about? Rose, you met her mother and her boyfriend, and you knew tons of shit about her."
Right.
But the thing is, when you did that, it was important to the plot, and those were interesting characters.
Yeah.
When Clara does it, it's superfluous. It's, oh, I'm at the school.
Yeah, it's more like exposition.
It's not important usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully next season will be good. I'm hopeful for it. I think the same thing happened with Matt too. His second series is my favorite series from him, with the silence and
Very
that whole
good.
plot. That was my favorite from him. Other than that, I mean, I guess we can kind of talk about next time. The next episode is entitled The Magician's Apprentice. I don't know what that means. It's probably in reference to the fact that the Doctor looks like a magician.
Yeah.
Or it could also be, what's one thing I've always wanted from Doctor Who? I missed this from Russell T Davies, although you got a little bit of it with Van Gogh, going back and seeing historical figures.
Right.
I think an episode where they meet, like, Houdini.
Well, Robin Hood kind of counts.
Robin Hood counts, but he's...
Yeah. Houdini would be great.
I think Houdini involved in some sort of alien thing, or he is an alien or something, would be a neat...
Hopefully, yeah, but I hope it doesn't turn into a Shakespeare episode, because I didn't really care for that one.
No, I think that's
fun. It was okay,
fun.
But it was like, meh.
I think that's fun. I think that and the Charles Dickens episode are both very fun.
Yeah, that was good.
But I think it'd be funny to have, like, Houdini, like, have the Doctor lock him in the TARDIS
stuff,
or something,
yeah,
and then he gets out, and the Doctor...
You could do a lot of good Houdini jokes, especially if the Doctor cannot figure out how he does the things, which would be great. So maybe it'll be that. I don't know.
That's complete... By the way, complete speculation.
Yeah,
I know
no
nothing. Nobody knows anything other than Moffat, but I'm just saying that I think that'd be a cool episode idea. But until then, thanks everyone. Subscribe if you haven't already.
Yep.
Go ahead and check out our other... We've done reviews for every episode this series if you haven't. Next week's going to be my Power Rangers review.
We're going to be back into unpopular culture a whole lot now since I'm out of school and we get a lot more time
Christmas
now.
was kind of a rough time for us, so we've been light on episodes, and we apologize for that.
No, I don't.
Okay. So, thanks everyone. Hope you enjoyed this year's Christmas special. Hope you had happy holidays personally.
Yes.
And we'll see you in if you're only watching us for the Doctor Who episodes, I guess we'll see you next fall. I'm assuming is when it'll come out, or if Sherlock comes back
we'll do
before
some Sherlock,
then.
probably.
But Sherlock won't be back before then.
Yeah.
Sherlock will probably come back in 20 years, but whatever. So, until next time, I'm Hugo.
And I am Jake.
And this has been Who Cares?